Ulysses is regarded as perhaps the greatest novel ever written, but it was almost never published. It was banned and burned because of alleged obscenity. A lot of people thought it was simply too dangerous to publish. It became one of the most famous, probably the most famous novel of the 20th century. Here, Marilyn Monroe can be seen reading it. But in 1922, when it was published, it was a different story. 500 copies of the book, which arrived in the English port of Folkestone, were burned by revenue and customs because it was deemed an obscene novel. This man, Sir Archibald Bodkin, was the Director of Public Prosecutions in England, and in December 1922 he ruled that Ulysses was obscene, even though he conceded he'd only read the last 40 pages of the novel. It was the language that made it so controversial. There were anatomical references. He talked about the scrotum tightening sea, but more than that, it was irreverent about the British royal family. It had what was deemed to be a sacrilegious attitude to the Roman Catholic Church. And the reader is up close and personal with the protagonist of the novel, Leopold Bloom, even following him into the toilet at one point. It was far too much for some elements of the audience back in the early 20s. People who tried to sell or distribute the novel were charged with obscenity, and from the early 20s, Ulysses simply wasn't available for sale on either side of the Atlantic. This man is an American judge, John Woolsey, and he presided over the trial against Ulysses back in the early 30s. And in December 1933, he determined that it was not obscene. Random House, the publisher, had imported Ulysses and effectively dared the American courts to stop it from publishing the novel, and the novel itself went on trial. Now, Woolsey said, look, it's not everyone's cup of tea. It may in places be emetic, in other words, make the reader want to throw up, but it does not tend towards the aphrodisiac, as he put it. It wasn't obscene, it could be sold, and his decision was upheld on appeal in 1934 and again in 1936. It continued to be a controversial novel. In 1950, the Public Morality Council voiced concern about its offensiveness and got in touch with Sir Theobald Mathew, the Director of Public Prosecutions. Now, his argument was that no one would be able to get to the end of the novel, and therefore they could not be corrupted or depraved, though they might well be depressed.